Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. Unfortunately for this one, John has been relegated. Actually, I think he's moving. But Alan's back, promoted, I guess. And you got a promotion earlier this year, sorta.
Sorta, more like I changed leagues more than a promotion. Apparently, everyone's signing with the Saudis, and I went to work for a union. So those are not the same thing.
Oof. Those are a little bit different, but both I think pay more a little bit, right? That's how they get you.
Uh, yeah, there was a little bit of bump in salary. So although there's more days to be worked, so it ends up being like a job. It's a whole thing. But I'm happy where I am, except that I'm in Riverside today, and it decided to be hot this week. And just coming back from Georgia, I thought this would prepare me for this, right? The hot stickiness, and I just can't. I can't hang. I realized that I tip my hat to all the people who live in the South and in Arizona and in Texas. I guess Texas is technically the South. I don't know how they describe
Texas
themselves,
is the
but
South.
tip my hat to everyone who chooses to live in super hot weather because I just can't hang. So I have an AC going, I have a fan going. So sorry for the background noise. How are you doing, Kaylor?
I'm doing okay. So I was in Minnesota last week, and when I left from Minnesota, the day we left, it was like 10 a.m. When I left from Alabama, and it was I think 115 that day, which hot, right? And so when we landed in Minnesota, it was like 80 degrees. It's like this is great. And then at the end of the week, it was like 100, which is still 20 degrees cooler than it was where I live in Alabama. But I was also sitting there like, I'm basically in Canada. I didn't ask for this. Why is it 100 degrees? And this is it's just
Yes.
not fair. It's not fair.
I spent some time in Minnesota in the month of July and was like, wait, it's really hot and humid here. I feel like I've been lied to, but
Yeah,
then
like the 10,000 lakes thing, I get the humidity, but like whatever. Look, this is not why the most people that are going to listen to a podcast have joined to listen to the weather. Although, honestly, talking about the weather is just about as interesting as talking about promotion relegation because we end up talking about the same thing. Hot is hot, promotion good, relegation also good, except it's bad. And don't forget it, kids. And that's it. That's the show. We just covered everything. Sorta.
shortest show ever.
Look, we might as well start off with the top. We were going to start off with Neill Collins and then Jeff Reuter and oh my god, I'm blanking on Tom's last name. Tom Bogert. I they decided to drop this bomb in the middle of nowhere. It was just like pro rel could be happening, and so I was like, we're talking about this. So let's break this down for you. What is planning to happen right now? So they're going to be voting on it in August. So that big that whole meeting that they do every single year that they always hype up. Like last year, they were like ESPN's going to Lou City versus Phoenix last year, and it's going to be this big thing. Yeah, this year it's actually a big deal, and the fans actually get to see the product of it. Kind of. We probably won't hear much about it. Let's be honest. And so they're going to be discussing promotion relegation. It could take effect next year in the reformatting of leagues, but the promotion relegation will not take place until 2025, 2 years from now. So some people are thinking that it will start next year. That's not the case. The things are going to be repurposed and rebuilt for next year. So they want 3 professional leagues. Here's where it gets kind of tricky. And I'm going to break down all the things of what this could mean. So right now, there are only 2 professional tiers in the USL. Now you're thinking Championship League 1 and League 2. League 2 is formerly the Professional Development League, the PDL. It's semi-professional, not professional. The PDL, League 2, will not be a part of this system. Now, it may be rebranded. This new professional league may be rebranded to League 2, but it will not be the League 2 that you know. Some teams from League 2 may make the jump to professional, but it will not be League 2 as you know. That's makes total sense, and everybody's following that completely. what this also means. So here's how this, since you're going to have the three, here are really the three main ways that this could work. The USL stays the championship, League One and League Two, being second division, third division, and creating the first ever professional fourth tier in the USL or in the US soccer. Technically, League Two and NPSL, UPSL, people call that fourth tier, but that's not actually the fourth tier. It's more or less like open tier. But for simplicity reasons, we call that the fourth tier of soccer because it's a national league that sits under League Three or Division Three, but technically it's not. So they could be creating the first official fourth tier of soccer in the US. What this could also mean is that the USL Championship stays as the championship in the second division, and USL League One splits into East and West. And the bottom one or two teams from the championship from the East go down, and then the bottom one or two teams from the West go down, and then vice versa, they go up. It would work a lot like your Valorama North and South and your Valorama National in England, if you're familiar with like Football Manager or just a sicko that watches that, right? That's kind of what we're looking at. Or we have our third option, which is USL goes Division One. And that sounds insane, like it would never happen, but don't forget, the USL Super League's already doing it. They're already doing it with going against NWSL. So we could see the creation of the USL Premier League, essentially, or the championship just moves up and it becomes a Division One, and then League One is, or the championship is what's League One becomes the championship, and then whatever League One becomes, like, I guess stays League One. Basically, you have those three options. USL goes Division One. They create the first ever fourth division, professional to fourth division, or League One splits into two entities. That's kind of what we're looking at.
Everyone confused yet? I think I've seen this on the Twitter machines and some of the social medias, and John just kind of put it in the chat. And I think this is the biggest question: is does USL League One have enough teams to do this? And I guess the argument is, if you give owners and prospective owners an opportunity to come in at a cheaper cost than buying into the championship, you're going to entice people to purchase at a lower cost and then be able to invest in the club, invest in the growth to move up to the championship and Premier League, right? I think that's part of the conversation that USL is having is, how do we spur growth without having to have $500 million in the bank? It's, if we can create a system where people can join in, whether that's existing clubs moving to the USL structure, right? Drew just put in there what No Nisa love, right? If there's a door that's open to allow existing teams or new teams, or, you know, a conglomeration of a couple local teams in a lower league that come together and kind of do a united front kind of thing where they combine a couple teams and go into this pro atmosphere, I think that's what USL is probably going to have a conversation around. And this has been going on in USL for a couple years, I guess. At least last year there was a discussion, and they said there's not going to be a vote this time, but we're going to discuss it. So the fact that there's a vote means that there's probably enough people that they feel like this is something worthwhile to have a vote on. And, you know, the structure itself is going to be what makes or breaks this, right? Like, I do think that there was a conversation to have about the goodness of pro and the badness of rel. But ultimately, this can't work like it does in some other areas because the United States is so big. And then the next question is, if St. Louis exists in this, if they switch back and forth between East and West, do they ever get relegated? Because how do you relegate them in the East if they move to the West the next year? But
does that become Tulsa?
Maybe Tulsa
become our new St. Louis?
And so I do think that that's a conversation people have pitched, right? This East versus West, this really like solidifying these conferences as like you are your own ecosystem, and then you play some East teams like USL Championship is doing right now, and then you split the United States up into two, and then you have an Eastern Conference, Western Conference. Then you can, or maybe you split them up into regions. You have your West, you have your North, and you have your South. Because let's be real, there's going to be more population of soccer clubs in the South and the New Englandish area than there is in the West, just because of populations and cities and such. And so I'm very interested to see where these discussions go, outside of just the pure pro rel conversation. I think that's where the more interesting conversation is going to be had here, is the intricacies, the makeup of the conferences. Those are the more fun things, I think, to debate than whether pro rel should exist in the United States or not. Like, I think people are pretty entrenched in their camps, and I don't think any amount of arguing is going to change that. But it's within those circles, how do we make is pro rel valuable in the United States, and then how do we do it when USL League One has struggled to get teams even in? But maybe maybe the incentive of moving up into the championship and possibly a D1 is enticing enough for people to take a chance and buy into the lower leagues and build those lower leagues. Because I think the fan bases are there. I think the team's there for USL League Two. I think the structure's there as far as communities. And then this is how you pull people away from joining MLS Next Pro and or any other pro opportunities.
I think something to talk about here, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is there is about getting enough teams involved, right? And you mentioned pulling from other places. Talk about your Chattanooga FCs, where their former president is now the president of the USL Championship, right? And that's pulling power already, because that's someone who not only has the best interest of the USL, but frankly, he worked there a long time. He has the best interest of that club as well. So if he could truly tell them, hey, this is a safe ecosystem for you to join, they'll probably be more likely to join, especially since that fits more with their morals than a MLS Next, right? And same thing for a lot of other clubs around the league. Something else to consider here is something that people have talked about a lot. It's like, well, we've already seen teams in the USL self-relegate, and they went from the championship to League One. But a lot of those teams that we saw self-relegate, I say a lot of those teams, I'm talking about North Carolina and Charlotte, right? When they joined the USL, North Carolina is a bit of a finicky subject, but when they joined the USL, there was USL Pro. And at that point, USL Pro was Division 3. That was a Division 3 league, not Division 2. It was not the championship came in and then they created League 1 as a Division 3 league. Really, League 1 just took the place of USL Pro. It's just the championship went up. So they didn't really self-relegate in the sense that they couldn't financially prepare for the championship exactly. They prepared to stay in Division 3 the whole time. That is their financial structure. That's what they came in hoping. Granted, North Carolina's a bit different because they wanted MLS, but same thing could be said about Sacramento, right? And so you're looking at those kind of teams who you say, well, they self-relegated. Really, they just went back to the league that they originally joined. And in that sense, owners can kind of put in the money that they're comfortable with spending, where they say, hey, we are willing to put in the money to keep us solidly at a Division 3 level. And you say, well, that's not very American dream of them. Pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get yourself to the Premier League there, bud. But look how many teams in England are perfectly content and celebrate making it to the third division, right? And I think that's going to end up being a lot of the same in America, where you're going to have teams that are really vying for promotion and everybody wants it. But look at other sports. Like, I'm going to speak at baseball because I'm a Reds fan and I saw what winning does to, a stadium, right? Some people want to get in, put in enough money to make money and not lose money. They want to stay right in that black area. They could be marginally making money, but they're still making money. other teams like, I'm sorry, San Diego, right, put in a lot of money because they want to win now, right? And yes, there is no threat of promotion relegation there, but also there is winning a World Series. The same thing's going to happen here, where some owners are going to put in just enough to keep themselves afloat, but they don't want to put in more, because if they put in a large investment and they don't get promoted, then they just lost a lot of money. And so you're going to see a lot of stagnation. And that's also the truth that comes with promotion relegation.
Yeah, we see what happened in Liga MX, for example, where teams that are earning promotion did not have the necessary stadium infrastructure to be able to move up, and that's also a conversation to have, right? We saw OKC Energy essentially become non-existent because of their stadium. Now, there's rumors and things going around that OKC is making a comeback, not as branded as Energy, but maybe rebranded. And doing so in the championship, but trying to find a different stadium. And this is what's going to, the lack of soccer-specific stadiums, the lack of, individual stadiums is going to run. We're going to have to run into some problems. So what is the answer to that, right? And that's all of these discussions of, take Loyal, their stadium 6,000 seats. Like, that's not great for Division I, right? Like, so if San Diego gets promoted, are they going to then have to find another venue? But then what if the venue doesn't want to work with them? And so I think there's a lot of things that go in. Like Liga MX suspended promotion relegation for a while, and they're just talking about bringing it back. And so there are countries that still don't do pro rel. Like US isn't the only one, because there is structural issues. And I think, Evan, you bring up a very interesting point. Is that the timeline feasible? I think it's a very valid question, right? Like, can we really build this out to be something successful? Or is it just, we need to do this before MLS gets so big and starts taking out some of the USL clubs? It's, are we doing this now to try and get ahead of a curve and push something and get some excitement leading up to a World Cup, right? And I think those timelines really put pressure on the USL clubs that want to make this happen, in a way that makes it maybe not the most viable option, because now you're already putting dates on it and you haven't even figured out your structure. So I do think there is a lot of very valid concerns about the structure itself. Like I said, this is the more interesting discussion versus like, should pro rel exist? It's, are all of the things in place to make pro rel successful in a short-term plan versus, Jake Edwards was talking about like, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But, it's been slow going. And I do think the World Cup is the thing that's really pushing USL to start this up and announce this. And maybe if they push it back a year, so it happens during the season of the World Cup, and they can hype it up during the World Cup and build that momentum, like, sure. But, I think that's where the timeline comes from, right? 2026 is right around the corner. And you got to start planning for that right now. So is it feasible? Maybe. I don't think it's likely, but it seems as if they have the votes to at least start the process of making it happen. Otherwise, why would they vote on it? Or they're like, hey, not enough people voted on it. And then they put it to the fans to put some pressure on the owners who want to make it happen.
I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. And, we've been talking about this for over 20 minutes now, right? Well, we spent a lot of time talking about the weather. I don't want to lie to the people here. But, there's a lot of conversation. And this is why I'm a little bit frustrated that Jeff decided to, hey, sprinkle this out there. And Tom as well, just be like, hey, here it is. Because like there is other good stuff happening in the USL, right? There's a lot of fun conversations. And the truth of the matter is that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to start watching the USL, not just because of promotion relegation, but just because they're even talking about it. That said, UWS, United Women's Soccer, they've been doing pro rel for 2 years now, where they've had UWS 2, and Coppermine got promoted, and I think went on to the summer championships after being promoted straight away from UWS2, right? So there is some bit of that here in the US already in, semi-professional women's soccer, but any level is a level, right? There is some kind of goal. I I think there's a lot here. I think that trying to get it out before the World Cup is the obvious answer. And you also, and it makes me irrationally angry that I'm going to say this, but you also get to dangle the Wrexham carrot right in front of their eyes, right? Because you get to say, not just to the owners, to ESPN, we have promotion relegation. You know that Wrexham thing? You know that whole thing of how big that got? You can have that on ESPN. You get behind the scenes coverage. And suddenly during the World Cup, the USL can be like, hey, Pro-Rel right here, USL. Oh, and by the way, they have the Super League, which is women's soccer being done at the highest level. And these clubs are sharing the same infrastructure. And it becomes one big package deal, not just for the owners, but for TV broadcasters. And instead of going to ESPN begging, they have all the chips. They can push them on the table, and whatever TV broadcaster wants them, they get them. And I think that's a lot of what's motivating the owners here as well. So I think that's exhausting the whole promotion relegation topic. If there's more stuff you have comments about, if you're here, by the way, if you're on Twitch and YouTube, we can see your comments. If you're on Twitter posting stuff, I cannot see your comments. StreamYard's just like that. I'm sorry. So if you're posting stuff on Twitter and we haven't been answering it, that's why. So if you have any more comments about promotion relegation or any other topic, go ahead and put it in the chat. Let's go ahead and move on. And even though he is not here because he's getting himself a new apartment reveal next week, fun. Let's go ahead and talk. Let's go ahead and listen to old John Morrissey and hear what he has to say about Neill Collins and his move over to Barnsley and what he did in his last ever match with Tampa Bay.
Hello and welcome into the USL Tactics Show, where today I want to talk about Neill Collins' final game in charge of the Tampa Bay Rowdies and that 3-5-2 system that he used to dominate the Roots in that last game. In the forward line and in the press, you often saw Charlie Dennis pop up into a front three to match what Oakland was doing, but the support behind him and the ability of the forwards, like JJ Williams here, to apply back pressure was really crucial to the way that Tampa Bay controlled the Roots' attack. You're going to see how they slowed the move and how Jordan Doherty fills back into that channel to really deny what Oakland is trying to do in this move. When the press took on more of a two-forward shape and Oakland was able to work around it to an extent, you often saw the center backs, think about Aaron Guillen here from that left center back spot, step up, force Oakland into turnovers, and then you would get into that virtuous cycle where the Rowdies were able to break into the opposing half with numbers. Offensively, the other really key tactic was allowing one of Cal Jennings or Charlie Dennis to drop to the left side of that lone DM for Oakland. The Roots tended to push one of their two central midfielders very high in the press, leading to isolation. And in this case, you're seeing how Dennis and Jennings were able to connect. Now, note there that the wingback for Oakland is also drawn into JJ Williams, and Jake Araman is able to get down the wing. I've said a lot of names and talked about a lot of concepts there, but the basic premise is that you're able to drop one of those attacking players deep to carry the ball forward, while four other players, the two other forwards and two of the wingbacks, are getting up and punishing Oakland. It was a gambit that worked time and again. You get one more example here. Williams gets the ball over the head of that advanced central midfielder. The wingback is nowhere in sight, and Cal Jennings is able to drive in at goal. This is just another variation on the basic Neill Collins system of that back three with a lot of pressure, but it's such a reflection of what makes him special as a manager and a tactician and why he's going to be a success at Barnsley.
I do this every time. So, Tampa Bay is good. Neill Collins is decent at coaching. And this isn't really a shock, the move itself, because I mean he was kind of linked to Walsall earlier this year. I think I mispronounced that, but whatever. It's the one with the bird, the singular bird. And he was already linked to them earlier this year. So this isn't exactly a shock that Neill Collins is leaving. I think for a lot of people from Barnsley were shocked there because I think didn't JJ Watt just invest in them, or some American person invested in Barnsley, and I think he invested in Burnley. They're all the same. They're claret and blue, whatever. And then people were like, ugh, I knew the American would bring in an American coach, even though he's Scottish, whatever. And I think this is a big fit. And I think this is also a really good opportunity for coaches because we've talked about this before. It's really easy. Burnley's JJ Watt, thank you. It's really easy to put an impact on players moving, right? Joshua Winder, we know about his impact moving over to Benfica because they put a nice little, $100 million price tag on it. So we know exactly how much that move is worth. But how much is a move to England worth for a coach? Do we really know what that really means? Is he going to poach players from the USL? It's likely that he's going to bring someone with USL experience because he's used to them, right? Now it may be a youth player, it may be an impact player. I don't know, but it's very likely because coaches pull from what they know. Look at Mark Lowry, who we'll talk about in a little bit. He pulled from what he knew. And I think as a coach, if he succeeds, this is going to give, England and other countries a more of a look at the USL and say, hey, this is a real viable place for coaches, but also it may just end up being another player pipeline. Uh-oh, my phone's going off. That's not yours. Don't check your phone. Don't do it. That was me. All right. Anyway, that's all I had to say until I was really interrupted by Apple.
Yeah, this was like, I think this is kind of the take I was going to make with this is we've seen USL be a place for player development. And so it's only a matter of time before we saw this USL as a place for coach development. It's been a little bit, I don't say upsetting, but there's been a lack of move from USL to MLS for quite some time, where coaches who probably should deserve a look at that next level get overlooked. And a move like this, if he's successful, which there's probably little doubt that he will, right? He's a solid coach. He's done a great job with Tampa Bay. As long as his board invests in players that he believes in, and he can build his system, I think he could be successful. And it just opens the door for other coaches to come either to USL as a place to prove their system and prove their worth, to move to a different level, or a place for U.S. coaches to really feel that they can springboard this into a career at a higher level. It's a shame that USL or MLS hasn't taken as many chances on a USL coach in the past. They have them in their backyard, and they seem to kind of look down on them for whatever reason. But, we saw Cherundolo was able to take a lackluster performance in Las Vegas and turn it into an MLS coaching job where he did a pretty good job. So I think we're seeing an increase in people's understanding of USL as a place to incubate young coaches. We see USL coaches getting their top tier licenses in the United States as being USL coaches. And so I think it's just a great system for coach development, the same way it's hopefully a great place for ref development, and it's a great place for front office folks and the like to really cut their teeth in a way to move up and learn the ropes in an environment that may not be as, I don't want to say demanding, because that might not be a fair assessment, but these are, starter level jobs where people can really prove their worth and move on. And so it's good to see him getting a chance. I wish him all of the best. And hopefully he has some success, and it opens the door for other coaches to either move to Europe or get looks from other leagues.
Obviously, I have no real game in the fight on whether, Neill gets promoted from League One into the Championship into the Premier League. But, there's a part of me that really wants to see it, just because it will give the USL like a lot of recognition. And it's everything about the USL is sticking it to the MLS man, right? Like, screw you, Don. We want to stick it to you. I don't even know what he looks like, so I can't stick it to him really. But if he sees that a coach or another owner sees that a coach from the USL gets promoted from League One to the championship, is in competitive in the championship, then that's what we're going to start seeing more MLS coaches getting a shot, or they're going to get more shots in MLS, right? And we've already seen Colorado Springs since their coach on down to where was it, Houston, which a lot of people assumed that Houston's coach was going to get fired anyway, so they all just assumed that he was just going to step up. We've seen head coaches at the USL level go to be assistants in MLS, but never a real streamline to make it. And if this happens, you're going to see more of that, because there's no reason that Bob Lilly should still be around the USL. If anybody was competent in MLS, they would have given him a shot a long time ago. How much it really annoys me watching, US Open Cup broadcasts, because they're like, did you know Bob Lilly has been in the USL for this long? And there's always an article written about he's the best coach you've never heard of, except everybody's kind of heard of him. It's just he was never given the shot. And they're like, well, he doesn't play this sexy attacking soccer, so therefore he's not good. He's just defending. Like, do you know how many MLS matches I've watched that they could use a little bit of defending coaching? Just a little bit. It doesn't make sense. And you see this a lot. And then you see the failed managers of MLS move down to USL, and people are like, see, retirement league, they just couldn't make it in MLS, so they just went down to USL because they'll take them. But how many of those same coaches have we seen get fired too? I think there is a superiority complex and a little bit of an inferiority complex on our side too sometimes. Well, kind of speak. That was about to be really mean to Mark Lowry, but kind of speaking of inferiority complexes at times, Mark Lowry, if you did not see what he had to say about his latest match, boy, was it something. Mark Lowry comes out, and we're going to let you listen to it, and you'll get to react along with us. Mark Lowry throws Mecca King under the bus. He throws his players under the bus. He throws stadium architects under the bus. And the only person that does not end up under the bus is himself. It's truly an incredible post-match interview. And if you want to watch the whole thing, I'm going to put it into the description in just a little bit, and I'm going to post it in the comments in just a moment. But it's incredible. We're going to go ahead and watch a little bit of this together, and yeah, let's go ahead and hop on over if I can figure out how to do this.
I'm not disappointed, because I have to look at myself, and we've spoken there with the whole team. There's not much I can do. But all I can do is set us up to go be the better team on the day, and we're the better team on the day. Doesn't mean we get 3 points. I think that the problem now is it's the same players and same position every week that's costing us the game. So it's becoming glaringly obvious to everybody in the locker room. And they're losing a lot of trust in certain players. And that's inevitable. If you make mistakes and cost us goals, that's going to happen. That's just the way it is. I can't protect you. Can't hide or take away the fact that mistakes from certain people keep costing us goals. So it's more now just trying to find a solution to make sure certain people don't play. That's the reality.
How do you, I get, maybe if it's not, you said you couldn't really take care of it, so like how do the guys deal with that?
No, they can't. It's a case of me finding someone that can play there. That's it. They can't.
All right, so this is the first part of this, and we're going to go ahead and skip forward just a little bit and go ahead and resonate in that, specifically the part where he says there's nothing I can do. go ahead, just really sit in that because there really is nothing you can do. So let's go skip forward.
It helps to kind of get back on the field, though. It's not a performance thing. I mean, it's not a performance thing. So it's not even a goal scoring thing. It's the problem is when you're 1-0 down, the team puts 11 guys behind the ball. It's not an open game anymore. So it just becomes much harder to break down. We still got chances. Still should have scored goals tonight, but we speak about it, we preach about it, we work on it. Can't keep going 1 goal down. And teams haven't earned this goal. Haven't earned. San Diego didn't earn that penalty the other day. We gave it to them. They didn't earn that tonight. We gave it to them. Louisville, they didn't earn that. We gave it to them. Pittsburgh's goal, they didn't earn that. We gave it to them. So it's like, it keeps on happening. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about individual errors. I can't. It's finding people that don't make them. That's all I can do. Go find people that don't make them.
On the bright.
So remember, other teams didn't really score the goals. They didn't earn them. Indy gave them to him. And there's nothing he can do about this. He just needs to find people that can just simply not make mistakes. And the people that he brought in, he's not happy with. So we're going to go ahead and skip forward just a little bit more. We have 2 more clips that we're going to listen to of this, if I can find the spot.
For him, he looked a little slow on the turn.
Oh, wait, sorry. Go back a little bit more. I wrote down the wrong timestamp. So sorry.
My standout guy tonight was Macca.
So if you didn't hear that, by the way, the reporter said his standout player was Macca, meaning Macca King. And so this is what Lowry has to say about that.
Standout guy tonight was Macca.
Thought it was poor.
In what way?
Turned the ball over too much for him. He looked a little slow on the turn. I didn't think it was his best game tonight. The 2 turnovers in the first half were unlike him. I know it was only twice, but he's better than that, and he knows he's better than that. He's great, though. I mean, he holds himself to high standards. I hold him to high standards. People trust him. So when he makes those mistakes, it kind of like it's unlike him. I wish other people had that same mentality for when they make mistakes. Take that accountability and ownership. And I don't think some people realize how costly it is and how important it is because the reaction to these mistakes, not so much during the game, you want them to stay focused on it, but the next day or the following week don't seem to realize how much that meant, you know.
All right. One last clip. Macca King gets praise from a reporter, and he says, actually, he was poor. And then one last clip, and before we fully dive into everything, I think this last one where the talking point's really going to hit home.
We spoke about trust, spoke about how much you put into this away from the field, not just during training or games. Well, what are you doing when you go home? How are you living? Those little things add up. So there's some good points brought out in there. I think it was important to do that. Unfortunately, at this stadium, we don't get a chance to be together after the game because the guys change somewhere else and they have to go to the fans and stuff. So it's like we don't get a chance to have those moments, win, lose, or draw, which is it sucks because it's really important to have those moments where if you win, you should be in there together, not with the fans. You should be in there as a team enjoying it and then come out afterwards and do the fans. If you lose, you should be in there right after the game, not sign autographs. You should be in there, looking each other in the eye, dwelling on it, sitting in it a little bit, feeling the pain. That's just how it has to be. But unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity to do that here. So it was important today to get everybody in, even after they did their media duties and stuff, and have those conversations because that's what you have to do as a team. Win, lose, or draw, you have to either enjoy the moment or feel the pain of it, because if you don't, then it's more likely to happen again.
Okay. I've spoken enough. Alan.
So I guess I'll just kind of take it in order. There's some things in there that I kind of agree with, right? As a coach, your job is to put the players in positions to make plays, and you can't score goals as a coach, right? You can't make defensive plays as a coach. Your job is to build a system where players perform in the system to stop the team from scoring and score goals yourself. So I think that in that critique, I do think there's some validity in that. Hey, like if they're getting to the goals and they're getting their chances, like outside of that, there's not much more I can do. I've heard that from several coaches already, that like my job is to get them in position to be successful. where I have an issue a little bit is when, like, and this is my personal like teaching philosophy when I was in the classroom, is you try not to like bring down individuals in a public setting, right? You praise individuals in public, you like criticize the group in public, and then when there's individuals that need that, extra coaching, that, hey, I thought you were poor, like do those things in private where you're not going to like publicly put a target on your player, right? Like imagine you're the player and you're like, hey, this person think I did a good job, and you're like, no, they were terrible. You're like, what the hell, dude? Like, I know that I didn't play my best game, but like you could have just come and talked to me about it. Like that's like a personal thing. Now, that's not how Coach Lowry wants to coach, and that's not how his players understand him as a coach. Then that's like sweet. Like that's his philosophy. Players can buy into it. I'm not here to critique Mark Lowry's coaching ability, but I do think there are like, they carry a big share of responsibility for the team's performance. And like, I would argue that in certain situations, that's the coach's job, is to like be a buffer for his team, because I don't know a single professional athlete who cares about their performance who doesn't feel terrible when things don't go their way, right? When they lose, they feel it, right? Like some of these players have a financial incentive to win, and when they don't win, not only does it hurt them physically and emotionally, but it hurts them in their pocketbook, right? There's players who don't get bonuses when they drop points. I think for me, the last part is the part that really kind of was like, what the hell? And there's traditions for some teams that the players interact with the fans at the end of the game because they want to build that community. And when he's saying you need to go to the locker room and, be a team first and then go to the fans, is when a fan is upset because their team loses and your players just walk off the pitch, it looks bad, right? It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It feels like they quit and they were like, whatever, they didn't even care that we were going 90 for them, right? And there's fans there that are singing and chanting and cheering and being emotionally involved with that journey with the team, that if you're just going to like bounce afterwards, like I think I've seen players turn losses into good memories for fans because they took the time to interact with the fans after the game. Now, if the coach wants to pull them off and then send them back out, like, sure, I guess. But I think the philosophy of like the fans come second is, and the way he said it was kind of problematic to me. And that's like, again, I've seen instances where players took the time after a loss to work on that community, and it's almost like a hey, like we'll do better next time, we'll be better next time. Here, let me spend some time with you to make this game that you spent money to come to worthwhile, because it might be the only one you come to all season, right? They're not the diehard season ticket holders. This might be the one game that they get to spend the money to go to a game. And so make that memory with that fan, because they're more likely to be invested in the team and come back. It's kind of a brutal video. It was tough. Like, I don't know if I've ever been in a media scrum that was like that. Like, I don't know how I would have reacted in the moment. Because I think if he's saying like we were the better team, like, okay, focus on the things that went well. Talk about the players who played well. Talk about the things that happened, and maybe talk about some of the things that you want to improve upon. Like, hey, like we were the better over the balance of the game. We probably should have deserved something from that against San Diego, against Pittsburgh, whatever. I think it's just framing it in a way that's very negative and maybe influences the players not to want to try as hard, because it's like, look, if I try really hard and I'm a great player and I make a mistake that leads to a goal and he's going to throw me under the bus afterwards, I think it puts more pressure on the player to make a mistake.
Okay, so you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm going to kind of go, I guess, a little bit reverse order, right, from what you said. This is the whole thing we talked about with promotion relegation, right? And the whole reason people are clamoring for promotion relegation, specifically the promotion part, it builds community. We all talk about, imagine how many people would come during a promotion push. Imagine finally make it to the top division after being stuck in the cellar forever. It's part of what makes, Luton Town such an intriguing storyline. It's part of what makes Sunderland Till I Die blow up the way it did. It's part of what makes Wrexham, right? And we have so many of those stories constantly, right? And your job in the US, and it's not fair to you as a coach, Mark. I'm just going to go talk to you directly. This isn't fair to you. You didn't sign up to be a community manager. You didn't sign up to be a community builder. You signed up to be a football coach, right? You signed up to be a soccer coach. But in the US, those are the same thing. They just are. It's just what it is. In England, in Ireland, in Scotland, in Italy, in Germany, the coach can just be doing coach things, and it does not matter. In those places, the players don't have to stop and give their jersey away and sign autographs. We always see the videos when they finally do it because it's a big deal, because they don't normally do that. But that's because they have hundreds of years of building this up. We're starting behind. We just are. And so for you to say the fans aren't important, I mean, look, Indy has one of the best fan bases in the USL. There's a reason why their owner is willing to spend billions of dollars to build them a stadium. Your fans freaking matter. Your fans are priority number one, because without fans, you don't have a job. And you could say, well, my job is to win games. Well, you're not doing that either right now. So you might as well build a community if you're still losing. That's kind of where I am. If you're winning, and he tries to make the other point of, well, if you win, you should celebrate with the teammates first. Really celebrate with your teammates. I get that, but also celebrate the fans. The Brickyard Battalion deserves a little bit of celebration. The kids who want to grow up and be you, not just a player. Some people want to be you, the coach. They want to meet you and be just like you. And you're saying, no, you come second. In the US, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. In 100 years and 50 years, whatever, maybe it will. And this will be what you can do. But right now, it just doesn't. Also, like you said, right? If you think that the other team is lucky and they've been gifted everything and that you've actually been playing really well, more of the video, he talks about how they had so much possession and they had so many shots, which is usually what I say whenever I'm losing on FIFA too. Like whenever I'm playing FIFA, like I have more possession and more shots. We're playing FM. Like I got FM'd, guys. That's great, man. But if you're doing so much of this well, who on your team is doing it well? Macca King gets a shout out saying, hey, I thought he was wonderful. And then you immediately go, nah, he was poor. And then follow it up later with, I hold him to a high standard, which is why I'm saying that. That doesn't count. Jack, if you want to go back like 15, 20 minutes, we played it. But there, if you look at Indy's YouTube channel, which we'll link later, it's there. But it's just, what was the point of that? A guy gets a compliment and you immediately tear him down after saying you've lost faith in players and saying that there's players you can't trust anymore. And these guys just can't do it. These are people that you specifically handpicked. So yeah, there is something you can do. Pick the players for your system. If they can't follow out your system, you picked poorly. Or maybe your system's outdated and you need to give it an update. And we've seen it a little bit with Lowry, but we're still seeing the same issues. Exactly what he said. We had 20 shots and we maintained possession. Well, it's not working right now, Mark. That's something you can do. You can change your system because it's not working. And completely throwing your players under the bus, saying the fans come second. All of it was crap. I haven't gone that hard at a coach. I feel a little bit bad, but also like everything about it was wrong. Whatever.
I think there's something to say about him being in the moment and him being human and being probably kind of disappointed in where Indy 11 is this season. I think people thought they would be better than they are. They're still in like a playoff position. They're still like pretty competitive in the league. But I do think there's something to say about, like, I don't want to say excusing some of the things that he said, but like it's understandable when, a human being is upset, and we're really reluctant to blame ourselves when things go wrong, right? This is the joke I tell with my wife. She's like, "Why are you blaming me?" I was like, "Well, there's only two of us, and I'm certainly not blaming myself." And I think there was a little bit of that too, right? And I think he's frustrated, so he's lashing out maybe a little bit, and that's fair. Like, those are human emotions that are understandable, but also you're a head coach doing a public interview. Like, you need to be aware of what you're saying and how it might be taken, right? And let's say he comes out as like, "Hey, this is, I feel like what I was saying wasn't construed in the words I was using." That's possible, right? Like, but you have to understand, like, this is it. When I watch that, it's like, here's what I'm hearing from the coach. And if I'm a player, it's like, am I one of those players? Like, they let the locker room knows it. So it's like, now we're sowing discord in your own locker room. Like, it feels wrong. It feels weird. And, there's going to have to be some bridges built, I think, with this team to get them through the second half of this season, right? They have to figure something out. And maybe they'll bring somebody else in. Maybe they'll bring in another player. I'm not sure how much Indy 11 wants to invest in a couple extra guys. I'm not sure where they're going to find those couple extra guys. But, I mean, now's the time, right? If you're going to see a move, and maybe we do. Maybe that's what he's highlighting is this is the coach going to the public interview to put pressure on the owners to allow him to sign a couple extra players. Maybe there's something there. Maybe the message isn't actually to the team, and maybe he goes back to the team and said, "Hey, I said this in my press conference. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish." But, it's hard. If I'm an Indy 11 fan, I'm not the happiest with that interview. And, we've seen fans of our own teams, when a coach comes out and says something, you're like, "Wait, what?" And you get upset about it. Like, how, take some responsibility, or what are you going to do to fix it? And maybe he comes out later and he talks about how he's going to help improve the team or whatever, and he takes a moment when he's calmer. But and maybe he watches it back and realizes, like, dang, I made a mistake, right? And it's something to be aware of, right? Coaches make mistakes, and when coaches make mistakes, usually it's with their words and with their tactical setup, right? And just like a player makes a bad pass or makes a bonehead move or leaves his leg in and causes a penalty, sometimes coaches make mistakes too. And, I have faith that Mark Lowry can, come back from this and rebuild some stuff. And I don't know what his relationship is with his players, but I would assume, based on players coming to sign with him again, that he's built up a lot of positive relationship with his players. And so, maybe this is a mistake that he has to get through, and 11 can turn a page and put together a good second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, also, if you're Indy 11, and I'm not saying don't support the team, because the team still deserves your support. This is one of the things the players don't exactly deserve to not be supported here. But hey, don't forget, you had your W League teams in the semifinals. Paul Dolinski, I'm sure he would love to have you around and at those matches. So go watch the W League. Which, by the way, I think those semifinals are happening this week. So definitely watch that. They have been crazy so far. They've been really fun to watch. If you haven't watched them, which you should be, we're running long, so I want to hit this really fast. We're going to talk about Union Omaha versus Richmond. And if you want to have a full breakdown, River City does a great job talking about Richmond, and they sum up their downfalls pretty heavily, a lot better than I can. So if you want to hear more of that, do that. But I want to talk about Union Omaha, guys. It's really more or less talking about a general trend in League One. And it's that when a team goes down and gets a red card, they just play so much better consistently. It's like it's almost become a tactical decision. I feel like sometimes, like, fellas, we're playing awful. Someone gets stuck in and go, spikes the kneecaps real fast. We need to play better, because they get a red card and suddenly they win 4-1. This seems to be a common thread in League One where we see teams just constantly play better. In fact, Richmond was on the other side of it last year in the USL semifinals, where they go down, or sorry, Chattanooga goes down to 10 men, and suddenly Chattanooga was the best team on the pitch, even though Richmond was the supporter shield winners from that year. It's ridiculous how common this is. And Union Omaha looks like they're finally kind of getting right. They beat Tormenta 2-0. They beat Richmond 4-1 after being, well, frankly, draw Maha, and they were losing Maha. Like, they weren't winning. They weren't getting points. And, they get 2 wins in a row. I think, they're undefeated in their last 4. And it looks like Omaha is really kind of turning around, but it's just a weird thread that just keeps showing up in League One.
Yeah, I thought Union Omaha defended really, really well in this game. It probably should have ended up 4-0. Not sure that was a pen. With the red card, it's Omaha fans are probably upset. Richmond fans are probably like, well deserved. I just don't think you put yourself in that position to have the ref make a call like that. And so I think Omaha defends really well, and it seemed like Richmond had a really hard time keeping crosses from finding Omaha players. And when you're, I think everyone assumes that when you're down to 10 minutes, a huge disadvantage. But I think the way that Omaha was playing, they were getting the crosses into players. And if you're going to put, 9 guys forward and drop 1 guy instead of dropping 2 guys like you would at 11, you're going to score some goals. I thought Richmond didn't really have a huge answer for Omaha. Not that they played poorly. I thought maybe 4-1 was a little bit unfair. But Omaha really defended really, really well. And Richmond put a lot of shots up and quite a few shots on target. But I thought that they weren't always the best shots. Omaha had the better looks. Omaha looks like they're putting together an offense that's going to allow them. Because they weren't giving up tons of goals to begin with, and that's where the draws were, right? They just weren't scoring multiple goals a game, and so they're probably going to win some on the stretch of like 2-1, 3-1, where they were drawing before. Dos Santos is looking very effective now, and I don't know if there's a tactical change there or not, or just more familiarity. But I thought Omaha looked really, really bright and really hard to break down and defended really well.
For the most part, Omaha's been sticking with their 4-2-3-1 pretty much all year long. Sometimes they'll kind of go to this 4-3-1-2. And those matches where they are in that 4-1-3-2, I don't think it works as well. This match is kind of hard to tell, but they do start off in that 4-2-3-1, and they stay there for the full first 40 or whenever the red card happens, right? And they really kept it in the middle where Doyle and I always mess up his name. Scarrance, I think is how you pronounce his name. I always mess it up because League One and even Championship, they all have a different way of pronouncing it, and I'm doing my best. I'm sorry. They're number 17. Everything just seemed to funnel in through them, and it was go out, go in, and go out. And it was really fun to watch. And that's kind of what they've done all year long. And they generally have this nice diamond shape, and they have it's at the base of this midfield, and they allow their wingbacks to move up. In this match, I feel like the reason they looked as good as they did, weirdly enough, is because their fullbacks didn't go up. Their fullbacks were forced to stay back and defend, and everything just looked more streamlined. Everything looked a lot more fluid. And I wonder if that's kind of the change for Union Omaha of how they can really get there, because everything is we're just going to bomb forward and play fullbacks. There's nothing the USL loves more than attacking fullbacks, and I guess that's the whole world. But they looked best when their fullbacks kind of sat back, really played with that defensive midfielder, and then, it sprang the counterattack. This is a hot take, and I don't know how many people are going to believe me when I say this. There's a guy on their team named Louis Hill who might be good at soccer. he sort of does the thing, and I thought he played really well in this match too. And I think having a guy like that is, what you do. I say Luis. Did he wasn't the one that got sent off? No, I was having to remember. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we're seeing with this Omaha team. I think keeping things more simplistic and playing not tiki-taka exactly, because it's not short passes, one touch around the field, but really keeping around that back line, staying with your holding mid, and then, keep that diamond and that triangle midfield going and then go up the field that way. It feels like a recipe for success for this Omaha team. Wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and move on. And we're going to do a little bit of predicting. We were going to talk about the Legion Las Vegas Lights match, not because I'm sad or depressed or whatever. We're already an hour. Pro Rel takes up a lot of conversation, so sorry. Basically, I say it again, Las Vegas Lights I don't think they're the worst team in the league. I genuinely don't believe that. They are really unfortunate that they don't have great attackers all the time and all that kind of stuff. I mean, their lows have not been as low as a lot of teams. So that's my point. I'm going to stick with that. And I said that before, and I'll beat that drum for a while. Let's move on to some predictions. And we're going to just do, I think we're going to do our normal 5. So let's go ahead and start off with Lou City versus Pittsburgh.
I had a really tough time picking this one. I think Pittsburgh's been playing pretty well as of late. And when they don't win, they draw. And so Lou City, maybe not as strong offensively as they've been in the past, but pretty decent defensively. I think you can make the same argument with Pittsburgh. And so I think we're going to get a draw out of this one.
This one feels like it's destined to be a draw, which is the exact reason I'm taking Pittsburgh. I'm just hoping for another Bob Lilly slam chair gif this year. So, John, if you're listening to this, please post that randomly. Thanks. So that's really what I'm hoping for, but I am going to take Pittsburgh. A massive match this week in the Copa Tejas, and that is El Paso versus San Antonio. El Paso, who look like they could be the cream of the crop in the West, are taking on San Antonio, who have decided that they are tired of being really good and are deciding just to, mentality monster all over the place.
Yeah, this one, again, I think based on just current form, El Paso maybe not being as strong as they were earlier in the season. Obviously still a good team, right? I'm not poo-pooing them as a poor team. But I think San Antonio is starting to put some games together where they're starting to rediscover the form of what got them their first star. And unfortunately, San Antonio fans, I am picking San Antonio to win this one.
I am picking El Paso. I even said one in my prediction, I put a question mark by it because San Antonio looks incredible right now. But I don't know how much to take of these last 2 matches they've had with Legion, who have looked really bad, and Memphis, who has somehow looked even worse recently. They beat good teams, but they beat good teams who have been playing really bad, and I don't know. I'm taking El Paso purely because they're at home, and I don't feel good about it whatsoever. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Let's go ahead and talk about Birmingham, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is losing their coach and their assistant coach. They're going to be left with their goalkeeping coach, who has been there forever, as their interim head coach. Unfortunately, my request for Leo Fernandez to come back as an injured player coach did not come true. I still think that should be what they do. Legion are coming off of a humiliating draw against, again, Las Vegas and being absolutely shut down by San Antonio. Are they going to be able to take it to a team whom they've already beat 2-0 this year? Or is Tampa Bay going to somehow get a new manager bump despite their manager getting promoted and not sacked?
I put in my predictions that they are going to get that new manager bounce. I think there's something maybe to be said about a team realizing that there is adversity, right? This is the us against the world that everyone wants to claim that they have. And I think Tampa Bay is a good enough team that they can keep going with what they've been taught and what they've been instructed. And maybe not all the way through the season, but I think for the foreseeable future, I think they can coalesce as a team and really hunker in and put together a really good performance. So I think they get that quote new manager bounce, and Tampa Bay takes this one.
I'm also taking Tampa Bay. Legion have just looked down bad, and sometimes, especially when I'm a fan of a team, it kind of becomes prove it to me, and I won't believe in you until you prove it to me, and that's not fair. But also, I said at the beginning of the year, Tampa Bay, with the roster they have on the field, and this is before Leo Fernandez went down, that they have the players on the field to be one of the best teams to ever play in the USL. If you look at the names, it doesn't get a lot better, and these players are in their prime. Stand by that. They're really good. I'm taking Tampa Bay. Let's go ahead and go around the horn and go down to League One, where North Carolina FC is taking on Forward Madison. And this is a North Carolina FC team who came in with high aspirations. People said this is the best team in the league after winning the Wooden Spoon not once, but twice in years prior. And this is a Forward Madison team who the common joke has always been more kits than wins, more kits than wins. They don't win a whole lot. Both teams completely refurbished their team. North Carolina FC scores goals for fun, and Madison, in my opinion, has the best back line in League One. So that said, Madison has crushed North Carolina this year. It has not even looked like they're in the same division. Does Forward Madison keep it going?
I looked at some of the predictions, and I am in like 4th place or something like that. And so I thought maybe I would take a chance in League One where NC playing at home get some revenge against Forward Madison. But I do think you're right. Forward Madison has looked very good. But I decided to roll the dice on North Carolina.
A good North Carolina team. I don't think many people will see that as a hot take. Imagine saying that last year. I'm taking Forward Madison. I think they complete the sweep. I think their backline's legit, and I think the way that they handle their wingback situations and their 5-man backline, I think their wingbacks just completely take advantage of all the weaknesses of North Carolina. So I am taking Forward Madison. Let's go and wrap up the show with predictions with Union Omaha versus Northern Colorado. Union Omaha, whom we just discussed, looks like they're finally getting on track, undefeated in their last 4, versus a Northern Colorado team, which, according to my eyeball and according to Ryan's, things that he runs, that you check those out on Twitter, they're easily the best team in the league right now. Fire versus fire, fire versus I mean, this isn't Fuego. Bird versus Ice Ball. Who wins?
I'm gonna go with Ice Ball. I really like when I watch Colorado. I really like the way they play. It is a fun team to watch. They're really tough to break down. I do think this is probably going to be going to be like a 0-0 draw, just because why not? Because chaos. But Colorado or Northern Colorado, Northern Colorado. You have a really good story with Urban Para, and so like I've been keeping my eye on them this season, and I think I pick them every time they pop up, just because I think that they are the darlings of USL League One right now, and so I'm going to go with them.
I'm also going to be taking the darling Ice Ball, and yeah, Northern Colorado, they are just really good. And if you haven't watched them this year, get on board, man. They're so good this year. And hey, if this was 2 years down the line, maybe this is their promotion season. Maybe. Wrapping the whole show up together. Ice balls and promotion, weather and topics that have been talked about too much. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Alan, do you have any final USL thoughts, or do you just want to go ahead and wrap this thing up?
Let's put a bow on this and send it off into the internet ether.
All right, then. So what's your final thoughts for the people?
This weekend, San Diego Pride, so I'm super excited for that. I'm doing some volunteer work for the Pride Festival. I know the team is walking in the parade. The supporter groups are joining them. So I am excited. This is what makes summertime in San Diego super fun. There's a bunch of events going on in San Diego. So if you're in the area, check out how to get involved, and happy Pride extension.
Love that. I wish more teams would get involved like that. I mean, I love to hear it. The way San Diego has really been built into this community. I mean, San Diego, your Detroit cities, your New Mexicos. I mean, they're all just doing it right. I wish more teams would get involved like that. My final thoughts. So I'm going into my first year teaching, and right now I'm in the middle of writing my drill and getting ready for my marching band for the first time. And I find out officially yesterday that I am going to be teaching Spanish this year, in which many of you are saying, Kaylor, you speak Spanish, which is funny because my wife said the same exact thing. And that was also what I said whenever I found out was, Kaylor, you speak Spanish? We'll figure it out, people. Me and the Bird app, not Twitter, but Duolingo, me and the Owl are becoming best friends. And it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. My pronunciations on here are going to be slightly less than subpar going forward. Thank you, and thank you. That is about it for this show. If in the link and in the description, click the link for the Discord. We are making the first ever USL show kit, and it's going to be basically community made. So by next Tuesday, so by the next time the next live show happens, we are going to put out a poll of your favorite designs. And after these designs, whichever design is picked, we're going to send it to Olive and York, and we're going to have them touch it up just a little bit. It's going to keep the same essence of the design, but clean it up a little bit, have them put their proper trademarks on it, that kind of stuff. And we'll be getting all that going forward. All proceeds will be going to charity. We'll figure out which charity to go to. We're not sure yet, but that will be discussion. And being part of a community building activity, and also get some sick merch, I guess. Do people say that? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. If you liked it, go ahead, leave a rating on it. It means a lot. And I don't know. I usually don't ask for that. I've talked too much. And for the last time, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.